record a podcast. We record the podcast. We record podcast. Record the podcast. Oh, hi there, Andrew. How you doing?
I heard the great acoustic sound coming from that. Is that a podcast mine?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
We record here all the time.
Wow. I should record there.
Yeah. Reverb's not great sometimes.
Oh,
But you know how it goes. Okay, well, let's move this mine cart over here. We have plenty of episodes we picked up.
And you use microphones to mine them.
Of course.
Got it. Just trying to figure out the logistics of a...
Well, I know. Well, though, let me see. Let me dig to see what episode you need me to find. Oh, here we go. It's the Nothing New of Remake podcast. Hello, hi. I'm one of your hosts, Justin Quizon. And with me is...
Hi, I'm Andrew Linde.
Oh, ready. It's like... Disney.
And this is a big one.
Yeah, it is.
This is not... we're going to have some other at least one other Disney remake this year that I don't think you could call a big one.
Yeah.
And this has been long awaited.
Mm-hmm.
We've been, and not just us, the world. Because today we're talking about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs from 1937.
And Snow White, 2025.
I like that you left the pause for the missing words there.
Put a pin. We're really this early. I'm like, there's a pin there for that reason.
Yeah.
You're right though. This is a fairly big episode because it's not just, it's another remake. We have another remake coming out, as you point out, and it's hinted. It's the remake of a film that defined a studio, defined a brand, and defined its creator.
Yeah.
And to say, we'll go into the production of, obviously, it's just hard not to, but the swing that Disney took and everyone involved to do this film was massive and unprecedented in 1937.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly, that's why it's so big. And of course, it changed film. That's very rare. You get to say that about many movies, even movies we cover. But Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs changed films. Don't get bigger than that.
I mean, first feature-length animated film. Certainly the biggest one at the time. People didn't think it would work.
Right.
People thought, well, this is crazy.
You're going to lose money on this.
And we've talked about, I think, in other Disney animated episodes, like Pinocchio or whatever, but the multi-plane technique to give the animation depth and more life. Yeah. Doing things that people had never seen in animation before.
Yeah.
The way that the animators used like makeup on the female character, like things that were just completely experimental, and made this so memorable.
Yeah.
And that we're just talking about the look of it, and then let's just go and talk about, well, it's based on a fairy tale,
right?
Which is genius because it's either something that people had heard or heard of. So you're telling already, Disney's in the remake business. he was already doing it.
He was already up there. Yeah.
But it's truly like, that is so smart. And then, as you said, it defined the brand. Princess. Disney princess. You say Disney princess to a person, they fully understand what you mean, what they're saying today.
Exactly.
10 years ago. 20 years ago. 10 years from now. It's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing.
And it all started here.
Yeah.
It doesn't get much bigger than this.
No, like the equivalent of this is someone deciding to remake Train Enters Station. That's the closest I can think of.
You remember Scorsese did Hugo.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, that, when I saw that in theaters and I was like, this is huge.
Yeah.
Because Scorsese is was doing his version of George Méliès's like short silent films, the going to the moon and all the other craziness. Like you see something like that and you're like, well, obviously with Scorsese, that was like his tribute. It wasn't. He wasn't like, I can remake it. It was like, that's the beauty of film. But yeah, we'll get to what happens when you remake a classic original thing that everyone has an idea of in their head.
When was the first time you saw Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs?
I couldn't even tell you. It's just been there forever.
Yeah,
that's the only way that I can describe it. It's been there forever. Obviously, must have been a VHS. One of those. I mean, probably had it on DVD when it came out of the vault one of the times. For the kids who don't know, there was this thing called the Disney Vault, and back before streaming, I know, back before streaming,
if you can wrap your head,
if you can even imagine. There were these things called DVDs, and before that they were VHSs. And I hear there were things before that, but that's before my time. The idea was they would re-release a film onto whatever print media existed at the time. And so at one point it was VHS, and then it was DVD, and the DVD would always have new special features. Special features are these things behind the scenes. Now you would find them on YouTube, and they would call them creator interviews. But that's the idea of a special feature. I'm making fun, but it's true. I mean, if you only know streaming, like it is such a mind-blowing thing of like, you couldn't watch something like
you couldn't not at a
and
choice.
As big as this, you know, that's just the way it was. I don't know, and I mean, I must have watched a lot because I do. The Evil Queen is a top tier villain, for a Disney villain. She's got the look and the everything. But I mean, it's almost one of those things where I'm like, do I know Snow White more from going to Disneyland? I'm a Disney kid. Like, I went to Disneyland as a child, as a teen, as an adult. I'm going tomorrow. It's a whole thing. But yeah, I'm like, maybe I know it better from the parks. I don't even know if I'm like, but I, you know, in the rewatch, of course, it all was like, of course, all these moments where I was like, I know them so well. And it's just because it was there forever.
Sure.
How about you?
Similar situation, except for the fact that I actually remember the day we bought it. So, like, I was a Disney child. You know, well, let's be fair. If you were born after the 80s, you probably were a Disney kid.
Yeah.
You know, it was a form of entertainment that everyone kind of knew. Well, okay, my kid could watch that, more or less. And with Disney, I was becoming a bit of a Disney fan because of, you know, all the other films we've covered on this show. But at the same time, I was also becoming a bit of an animation fan. At one point, I wanted to be a Disney animator as a kid. You know, I was drawing a lot and such. And the movie I realized as a kid I still haven't watched was Snow White. And I don't remember how old I was, but I do remember the day we bought the white clamshell version of the film. And I was very excited to finally get around to watching it. And as a kid, it's hard to not find enjoyment of it, but I admit it's not one of my go-tos. But hard to not enjoy the flick, obviously. And like you, I think being at Disneyland a lot and just being around pop culture and the knowledge of just what people remember from the film and reference the film, it's hard to just not know the movie. You know, like, Hi-Ho is gonna stay in your head forever. You know? No, the names of the dwarves, whether you get them correct or not, the fact of the matter is that, like, there is a naming scheme of the dwarves that you remembered as a kid to the day. That the impact alone, by the time we were watching it, is absolutely, like, impossible to ignore. You know. So yes, I don't know exactly the day, but I actually do remember, and I don't know how old I was, but I do remember the day we brought it home so I can finally watch it. So yeah, no, this movie was around. It's hard to not know about it, you know. Yeah. Oh man, let me tell you, if we could just jump to the Queen.
Sure.
Like you said, amazing design, like sets the standard of a Disney villain as much as Snow White herself sets the standard of a Disney princess. The Queen is this amazing designer because you can tell, like, is a beautiful woman of some fashion, but she is so evil, and to steal a word from another French, wicked. is that you find her repulsive even before she does her disguise transformation. But I don't know. As a kid, I love transformation sequences. So even though I knew that she was going from like evil to evil,
yeah,
the transformation sequence of her becoming the old lady is amazing, even to this day. And I don't know. This is like, those are iconic things about the film that is just hard to deny, and that's definitely the stuff that's stuck in my head. The transformation of the queen to the old lady, who gives her the apple. You know, but I don't know. Like it's funny. We
see the queen first, even
like
the movie. Yeah, it like starts with her talking to the magic mirror, which the magic mirror is also one of those where I'm like, it imprinted on me. I am like, anytime I see the magic mirror, I'm like, hell yes, I love this guy. It's like when I remember seeing Shrek for the first time, when they do the gag with the magic mirror doing like the dating game. I was like, that's so funny. Because what else is the mirror doing? Like, he just hangs out. Like, totally makes sense to me.
For sure.
But yeah, and it's so weird in an animated thing to talk about like set design, but it's like her throne.
Yes.
Is this insane peacock, elegant, like huge throne, where the mirror rests, like the look of the magic mirror, the way, and it's, they stick to like a very storybook structure. And make it very simple, and it's beautiful. Like, it comes across so, like you said, you see her and you're like, well, that's evil. She's evil.
Yeah. This is the thing. You nailed the word. I think the word you just said, I want to hang on to a bit, and I mean that in all positively. It's simple. The fact that it's coming from a Grimm fairy tale that most kids, even then, understood and knew, made it easy to kind of like, oh, I know this story, or I've heard this story. But then even the way they approach it is just so simple. It's an hour and 90-ish minutes, probably less, to be honest. I think it's an hour and 27 minutes. And the fact of the matter is that, like, it's not a complicated movie. It doesn't need to be a complicated movie, but you get the general gist and you get the general story. But what happens is that because the story is so simple, the animators go tenfold on their half of the job. It's a gorgeous movie.
Yeah,
it's still a gorgeous movie. And to this day, you can pause at any moment and go, yeah, that's beautiful. And the fact that I can still just be impressed with the color choices, the character design, the backgrounds, like you said, the set design. It's weird to say that, but there is incredible design work that it still holds up even more so, like, like 70, 80-ish years later, you know. And I think one of the interesting things about the movie is, like, keeping in mind the history of where we're at. They were constantly trying to, the Disney company was trying to up their game, and part of the reason you brought up the fact that a lot of people thought the film was going to fail, and part of the factor is that they were famous for silly symphonies at this point. Cartoons, funny enough, cartoons nowadays are always referred to, oh, that's kids stuff, but back then cartoons were for everybody, but they were always regulated to, that's comedy stuff. Cartoons, whether they're Warner Brothers or Disney, they were always, no. That's where you put the ha-has. That's what you throw that in the beginning of your film night so people can get a laugh and then get quick entertainment, and then we move on to the actual film. And you can tell that, as I'm looking into the history of the story of them making the film, they were like, in order for this studio to maybe grow a bit and get bigger, we have to commit and do a full-length movie, because the shorts are only going to take us so far. And of course, because of that idea, everyone's perceptions of animated shorts are like, yeah, but like, don't make a movie. People aren't going to be interested in watching this for more than 10 minutes. You're out of your mind. Repeatedly.
And even back then, the work that it takes to go into making animation already takes way longer than just filming something.
Right. Keeping in mind, the final length of how long it took to make this movie is still over 4 years, which even to this day, that's still actually kind of the length. I remember even in 1998 when Pocahontas came out, I remember finding out that, oh, this took 4 years. That was the standard length to make these movies. 4 years. even when technology has gone as good as it could get in the 90s, still took 4 years.
Even today, with all the computers, you think it would make it faster. Kind of 4 years.
It's still 4 years, and you can even tell when they're trying to rush it. It's very noticeable. So it's like, at the end of the day, handmade art takes time.
Yeah.
One of the other things but one of the other things that's interesting about, like, knowing that they did have to kind of break through this sort of mold of being from Silly Symphonies is that, like, and a thing I was really actually kind of noticing a lot in this viewing is tone and control of tone.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of masterful in hindsight. It's still funny and whimsical and goofy, even. Not to be confused with you. Happy 30th anniversary, though, Goofy movie. A different kind of cinema classic. Anyway, but yet I noticed, like, but there is a tone set for this film that allows dramatic stuff to happen and sad moments to happen, where it doesn't feel like, we're in two completely different movies. It's like, no, it's actually pretty shockingly consistent.
And just even beyond consistent, there's an arc.
Yes.
Like, we have this, we start, in a very, like, bad, sad place. Snow White's down on her luck. Then she's almost killed. And then it's the forest. And then the light, the ray of hope, meeting other people, being useful, being a part of a family. Like, it builds. It's not, like you're saying, it's not like a whiplash.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I see where we're going here. Okay, I'm along for the ride,
No, having her almost be killed by someone she trusted, the huntsman, then going into the nightmare sequence, that is the tree sequence, the forest sequence. And like you said, the animals are helping, they guide her, and then she meets the dwarves.
Yeah.
You're right. It's an arc that understands how to be a movie.
I think one of the things, so people obviously remember the scary trees in the forest. They'll imprint on you as a child. And if you rode the ride before they renovated it just a few years ago, there was a whole sequence where they run you through the trees. It's like,
I kind of miss that. I'm not gonna lie.
I kind of miss it too, but it is, things change.
I get it. Yeah.
The dungeon sequence now is scary in the new one.
Yeah, true.
We're talking about the Snow White's. It used to be called Snow White's Scary Adventure.
Yeah, it's
the
true.
ride.
The ride
at Disneyland, and now they just call it Snow White's Adventure. I don't even know.
He upgraded it. Yeah.
They changed it just a bit.
Yeah.
So in this film, what I think is so important is that they make it very clear, the animators, the people who made this movie, those evil trees are in Snow White's imagination.
Yeah.
It is a regular forest. Yes, it's dark. It's nighttime. There's an owl. She gets freaked out. But the trees are normal, and it is her fear that makes them into grabbing hands and a big mouth that's going to eat her. All of that. I think that's important. Let's put a pin on that.
Oh, yeah. That's beautiful, by the way.
Yeah,
I think, I agree. And then that's also understanding, like, metaphor. Right?
Yes.
Like, it's like...
the conclusion of the metaphor is when she falls and then she gets into that clearing, she lays there, closes her eyes, and then the lights come up.
Yeah.
It's the same forest with all the cute little animals that want to help her.
Right.
The same forest.
Yeah.
Nothing, it's not a different forest.
No.
Same exact place.
Yes.
It is just now she is not scared.
Right.
Put a big pin on
Big pin.
I can't believe that's such a weird pin.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're kind of skipping ahead because the beginning of this movie kind of feels like so much of what we remember.
Yeah.
It's, Snow White is the princess, but she is made to be a scullery maid by the evil queen.
Yeah.
They just very quickly explain, yes, she's the princess, but her mom died and this queen became the evil queen. Like, married her dad, became the evil queen.
Right.
Took over. Whatever. That's all we need to be told.
Yeah.
She's a scullery maid, and then for some reason the evil queen's obsessed with this mirror that will tell her if she is the fairest. fairest here in this time, I believe, to be most beautiful.
Right.
Right? That's kind of the meaning here.
Mm-hmm.
The mirror says, actually, there's one more beautiful than you.
Mm-hmm.
It's Snow White.
Yeah.
So the evil queen, being evil, says, I got to kill her. Yeah. That's the only way I can remain the most beautiful, the most fair.
You want to know like how evil the queen is? Just pointing this out.
Yeah.
She tells in detail how she should die to the huntsman.
Yeah.
She goes, I want to make sure she's dead. So you put her fucking heart in this box that has a heart on it just to really nail it in there.
Yeah.
And I want that to be so clear that's her heart. What the fuck?
So it's not in this film at all.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to pretend like, oh, that's the subtext here.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if this comes from the original fairy tale or if this is someone's add-on at one point.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe it was meant to be, she was going to eat the heart to become the fairest. And in fact, that was the whole idea of, later on we find out the huntsman put a pig's heart in there.
Yeah.
Because if she ate that, she'd become ugly like a pig.
Mm-hmm.
So the huntsman was really trying to screw her over. But I mean, this movie does have that detail of it's a pig's heart. But it's, of course, because where else do you get a heart of that size to make it look human?
Right.
But it is such a weird detail to include where it's like, oh, it's a pig's heart. It's like, whoa, what the hell?
Yeah.
but yes, cutting out the heart, you could take it to that Grimm's fairy tale level of she needed to consume the beauty, the heart of her beauty, that kind of thing.
Right.
But yeah, it is gruesome.
Yeah.
It is definitely like, well, she's not coming back from that. It's not just like, oh, drop her off a cliff. It's like, no. I need a bloody heart in here.
I want physical proof.
Yeah.
And I am all for having this box be a bloody heart inside of it.
Uh-huh.
That's effed up. Even if eating it or not, that is effed up. Actually, eating it would make it worse.
Yes.
But definitely just that act alone makes it excruciatingly gruesome. Mm-hmm. And the huntsman couldn't do it.
No.
And
I've always liked the huntsman too. I like every character in this. I'm like, yeah, they're so great. Like his look is iconic.
Yeah,
he looks like kind of like a beefier Robin Hood.
Yeah.
It's like so weird, but it's like, yeah, that's him. That's who you would have as your huntsman.
You know what's funny is like maybe we will talk about these later. Who knows? We'll see how the conversation goes. But I've never seen Snow White and the Huntsman. But I watching this, I am reminded, like, I could see someone looking at this story and going, let's take the huntsman and make him a lead and make him Chris Hemsworth. I actually totally can see that. I get it. I get that's a place you can add to that and expand on the idea, etc. But that's another movie. We aren't talking about that movie. And I didn't even watch it. But I'm saying I see that's a possibility. Pin. Now,
yeah,
we're going to be picking up a lot of pins today.
Oh, my goodness. So Snow White, I mean, and she's character-wise, she has to be naive. Like we're looking at this, like you said, reiterating what I said, simple. She's naive. Yeah. And that's just how the character is.
Yeah. She's a kid.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah. You kind of have to do that because that's the only way of, like, she's innocent.
Yeah.
She's going through this world and everything is scary to her. It's one of those.
Yeah.
But yes, so she does make friends. We skip over even the prince introduction. We're going
all over. We're all over the place. My God, they're right. But the prince, talk about prototype.
Yeah.
Talk about, like, starting, where we start. There is already a prince ready to roll, and he acts eerily like a lot of the other guys who are a prince in the Disney films. Let's just call it what it is.
I do want to point out, I think, you can look at Sleeping Beauty as an iteration of this.
Yes.
There's an evil queen, Maleficent. There's the prince that has to come save her. There's Philip in that one. She falls asleep.
Yeah.
You can see that Sleeping Beauty was an iteration. It was them saying, okay, here's a similar story.
Right.
And we're changing all the details, but you see it's a similar story.
Right.
So I think that's fair.
And side of that, I do want to point out, that is a kind of a testament of just how good even Sleeping Beauty is. Because the fact of the matter is, like, Yeah, I can imagine someone going, "Is this fucking Snow White again?"
Uh-huh.
And then the answer is like, yeah, but it's done so differently, and it's also an expansion of what they can do.
Yeah.
That you actually don't think about it that much.
Mm.
You just kind of go, yeah, I guess, but shut up. It's a different good.
Yes.
But besides that, yes, you're right. We totally skipped the prince.
He has a fun little moment at the wishing well.
That's cute. I like that. I forgot that that's how he introduces himself.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's character. It's small character work, but it's still character. It's him being. Oh, what's the word? Oh, I think charming.
Catchy.
Why would you ever Why would you ever get away from that?
Put pin in it. We really said that in the style of like we're two prequel characters.
I know.
Who were like, I like that guy. He was really what do you call it?
Charming. I can't imagine myself as like a squatty, like curly guy. Like charming, yeah.
But yeah, and I think I didn't look at the exact time, but I would say she gets to the dwarf's cottage by 20 minutes in.
I think that's accurate.
And that feels like most of the story. It's like such a weird trick that this movie plays on your mind.
Yeah.
Where it's like so much happens in 20-ish minutes. And then we get to the dwarf cottage, and this movie slows down. This movie is like, we now live at the dwarf cottage. You're never going to leave.
And this is what's amazing about the dwarf cottage sequence. From her getting there to her becoming part of their lives is the fact that, like, this is where I almost feel like they went, okay, remember the stuff we did with Silly Symphonies? Time to put that back into action.
Yep.
But we're still in the tone of the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
So while the tone's lightened up, and the characters are being a little bit more animated, especially the animals. We're not divulging too far from the tone we have established in the first 20-ish minutes. And again, I talk tone a lot when we talk about like movies in general, because I always feel like that's your job as filmmakers, is that like you can go here, you can go left and right however you want, but you have to make sure there's like a guiding light of tone that makes it consistent and that everyone buys into the world you're in. And I think with something like Snow White, a fantasy story has to be fully aware of its tone. Your characters have to be grounded to a point, but if you have characters who could, let's just say, break reality a little bit and have a little bit more fun, go ahead, but just don't let them go too far. And that's the thing with the dwarves, is dwarves are clearly comedic characters. They're fun, they dance, they sing, personalities up the wazoo. And they can kind of do certain cartoony things, but they don't rubber band themselves like they would in a Silly Symphonies cartoon.
Yes.
Even the animals, they're doing cute stuff like, ooh, let's dust things with our tails and such. But they don't act outside of the parameters that they've established already.
There are, in the animal cleaning sequence, so Whistle While You Work.
Yes.
Now we can talk about the songs.
Yeah.
There, I mean, we skipped over Someday My Prince Will Come, but that's the wishing, the whole thing. Whistle While You Work is with the animals. Snow White and the animals are cleaning the cottage while the dwarfs are at the mine.
Right.
And there are Silly Symphonies and other shorts. There are sequences of this that fully feel. There's the sequence where it's two like squirrels are dusting and they're going to throw the dust under the rug, and Snow White says no. So they put it in a crack in the wall, and then a mouse throws it all out and gets mad at them.
Right.
I was like, that's a Chip and Dale short.
100%.
I was like, there's like all the different animals. I'm like, oh, that is, as you're saying, that's where they're strongest. Like these animators and the storytellers, they're the strongest with these funny moments. But they're breaking out of that in order to, they're like, okay, we'll just put it in there.
Yeah.
It won't feel out of place because it's part of the song, it's part of the sequence.
Right.
And you have fun with it.
Yeah.
But then we come back to Snow White. We come back to the dramatic fantasy world that has been built.
Oh, side note. So I've learned in the making of Snow White, which you can actually watch the special feature on Disney Plus. Here, as a free plug for you guys. Remember, Andrew's talking about features and shit. On Disney Plus, it's there as well. They talk about the fact that they basically kind of had a we'll pay you per gag deal with the animators because they knew that like we need more jokes. So basically they were like, all right, we'll chart everyone just come up with a bunch of jokes, like gags, drawings of just things that could happen with the dwarves, the animals, whatever. And we'll pay you per gag, if it's a really great gag, we'll pay you a lot of money. If it's a small gag, we'll pay you whatever counts. So you get all these animators going like, whoa, all right. And so they just go and draw a dozen gags just to get a little extra pay. One animator pointed out that his gag was, I came up with the gag of having the dwarves while they're creeping up on the bedside to meet her, but they're still not sure what her deal is. Each of them have individually popping up, but their noses pop up first. They're boop, bloop, 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 bloop. Mm-hmm. That was my gag. And everyone loves that gag. So maybe I should have gotten paid more than $5. Maybe that's a $10 gag. But that's probably the reason, like, to go back to what you're pointing out, like, they're not just a monetary motivation, but it's also the place where they're like, oh, this is where we can do our thing. This is what we're good at. We can do this comfortably. But like you said, but we have to scale it. Go back to the heart of the story. Let's talk dwarves.
Sure.
It is time to talk about the dwarves, and
there's 7 of them.
There are 7 of them, and
beyond the fact that their names are telling you what they are.
Yeah.
They do feel distinct.
Yes.
7 distinct little personalities going on.
Yeah, and it's kind of amazing, like how much. I think here's the thing. I think creating distinct personalities for something like this allows shorthand character work, and I think that's fine. Actually, sometimes I kind of feel like more people could learn from creating more shorthand storytelling with direct big character personalities. When you have a guy named Grumpy, you kind of know his deal.
Yeah.
When you have somebody named Dopey, you know his deal. And but because of that also allows them to possibly have arcs, possibly have character driven stuff that could push the story in. And I feel like someone like, say, Bashful, you kind of know his deal. You're good. You don't need more than that. But certain characters, if his name is Grumpy should probably have an arc. Yeah, that's his name.
We're gonna see him soften.
Yeah,
that's the fun of a Grumpy.
Exactly. And if you have a Dopey who is unsure of himself and is quiet, sure, give him, put a little attention to that character. And I feel like it's strong work because it allows you to kind of get to like them fairly quickly. And without worrying about I have to explain everyone's backstory for X amount of time. Again, back to simplicity, back to what we have time for.
This movie has no backstory.
There's no backstory.
The evil queen, even as much as me saying, well, she married the king, and they just don't even, they're just like, yeah. They're like, yeah, that happened. Who cares?
Yeah.
The dwarfs, they're mining. Well, yeah, they're mining.
Yeah.
Whatever. They live there. Who knows?
Yeah.
It's no one gets a backstory.
Wait, hold on. Let me grab this pin. Oh, so heavy. Oh my god.
But yeah, so much of this movie is the dwarves.
Yeah.
And it's, okay. I'm not gonna pretend that this movie's not outdated.
Sure.
I'm not going to pretend because it's very much focused on the idea, and they do it in a funny way.
Mm-hmm.
They make it funny and not wholly misogynistic. The idea that the dwarfs are 7 dudes that don't clean up after themselves.
Yep.
They live a dirty life. And Snow White shows up and she cleans their whole house without even asking or saying anything. And when they show up, they don't know that she's there, but they go, "Where's all our dust?" That's funny.
Yeah.
Where's all of our dust? They go look. They're like, and the cobweb's gone. They're like upset that their dirtiness is gone.
Yeah. They're so used to it.
And yes, this comes from a lens of well, the women clean and take care of the house, and the men do all the work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's outdated. That's bad. Yeah. I'm not going to deny that.
Yeah.
But then this movie makes it funny. They continue over You would think this is beating a dead horse, but it is funny.
Yeah.
The hand washing sequence is funny.
Yeah.
Like every bit of it.
I'll say, you know what's funny about the hand washing sequence? I realize that might be the song I always forget the most. And it's not that I think it's a bad song. It's a very funny sequence. It's a very enjoyable song. But I realize, we don't talk about that one very much, do we? In pop culture. We talk about, literally every other song here, except for the hand washing sequence. But it's also the purest of fun, hilarity, etc. If you want to talk about misogynistic stuff, just to touch it there, Grumpy says something that is so outdatedly misogynistic that it's very much it's of the times. I'm not defending it too much, but he basically said that women are trouble.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I remember just going, Grumpy.
Yeah, well, and then he immediately, this is also plays into the story a bit. He says Snow White is a witch.
Yeah.
Which is we can take that to mean, yes, in the fantasy world that, or we could take that in a more modern way where some people would say, well, she's a witch. And what they really mean is she's a bitch. So it's truly one of those things where I'm like, I think Grumpy is speaking to a modern audience there, but also they're playing into the story. They want to get the idea of witches out there so that people go, yes, of course. Because of then, when Snow White says the queen tried to kill her, Grumpy again says, well, she's a witch. That's Grumpy's go-to. Like you said, he said women are trouble. Yeah, Grumpy doesn't like women. I don't know, whatever.
Even I did, of course, already discuss the sequence of the witch transformation. Yes. I do want to just sort of jump to her going to the house.
Yes. Well, the transformation is so great.
It's amazing. It's
so scary.
Yeah.
And then even the stuff that she puts in her potion is so it's not even Eye of Newt. It is a scream of a banshee. It's it's so crazy.
You know what? Side note, I'm not here to always go make merch for me. But you know what? As I was rewatching this, I realized the goblet she drinks out of that. And I'm like, it's the design of it is so memorable, even to that's how good the design work on this movie is. The goblet she drinks is memorable. And I'm looking at it going Disney, where's that? How come I'm not seeing that at the park? I'm not gonna lie, I would buy that.
Yeah.
They sell poison apples all year long. But if you do a design of the Queen's animated goblet, I will buy that.
Yeah.
If you can make it light up in the bottom, dope. I'm not saying you need to, but that would be so cool. Anyway.
Okay. Let's talk about the apple.
Yeah, let's talk about the apple.
Why?
Why an apple?
We don't know.
What,
it's just kind of it's an apple.
Look, I can even go biblical, right?
Oh, sure.
And then go a little classic Adam and Eve shit, if I wanted to. And maybe that's their angle. But at the end of the day, they just figured, well, an apple is enticing. That's why, they put it in the Bible like that. And it's a bright fruit that, can be so... ooh, look at this.
And it comes off a tree. It feels more natural, I guess. Yeah.
Natural, yeah.
We'll put a pin in it because they give Apple backstory and I can't contain it anymore. It's so crazy. The apple, but it is again her dunking the apple in the and why sleeping death? She wanted to cut out her heart before,
right?
Just go stab her.
If you already know where she's I was thinking that this viewing, I'm like, if you know where she's at,
yeah,
and then you're gonna be in disguise and she won't recognize you. If you want the damn heart, take it. It's right there.
I also love that the magic mirror is yeah, she's in the dwarf's cottage. The mirror's I'll tell you where she's at. I don't give a shit. He's that's what I'm here for.
Listen, I'm here to tell you who's the fairest.
Yeah.
And
where she's at.
Where she's at. I'm pretty fucking. I got no loyalties.
But yeah, so she disguises herself.
Yeah. And
then poisons one apple.
Yeah.
And then she's got a whole basket full. So
which she knows.
Yeah.
But you know what's amazing about this sequence is that even though I've seen it a million times and I know where it's gonna go, the tension is extremely well done.
Yeah.
It's actually so well done. When the dwarves catch wind of hey, Snow White might be in danger. You know what I love about also like subtle character work? Who's the first to run out? Grumpy.
Oh yeah.
Grumpy's the first to go, let's go. And I'm like, this looks like someone started changing his mind about somebody. But then what's really great about the back and forth is that like Snow White is actively like taking her time with that bite. And the queen's like, hurry the fuck up. He's like, oh, what would it be? And what was it? Yeah. That's great.
All right, she makes her make a wish on the apple or something, right?
She
What
does.
is it? Yeah.
And the queen, as the hag, is like, yeah. That's fine. That's great. That's good. Sure. Hurry. Because she knows the moment the dwarves come in, if the dwarves come in right before this happens, she's probably gonna like, fuck, it's not gonna happen. But the tension's high, and it's really well executed. And like, the moment she does bite, and it's actually kind of dark. Again, the whole show not tell, or it's the less you show, the more your imagination fills in. It's like the fact that you see the bite, and then it just hand drops, apple, bite. That already is like a dark image. Which then, like leads to her like trying to escape or trying to get out of there. And the dwarves are like, we're going to murder somebody. No, if there's anyone who I know who's going to full on murder the queen, it's Grumpy.
Yeah.
And they were very like, I've never like, they were all, hi ho. This is the most where all 7 of them were like hardcore. Where the fuck is she?
Yeah, they've got their pickaxes. They're ready to go.
Froze.
Yeah.
I've never seen them all that mad.
But this is for me famously in the old ride, you come around the corner and there's the lightning flash and the queen's gonna fall off the cliff. She's trying to roll a boulder onto them.
I kind of love that.
And then she ends up, the part of the cliff that she's on falls, and then she falls to her death.
It's like it's like, this is where like, you want to talk about Deus Ex Machina. That's definitely a big case where she's like going like, oh shit, lightning bolt like ruins her plan. I do love that she's like going like, I'll fucking roll you guys over with a boulder.
Yeah.
Like a goddamn pins.
And this is another, the origin of what we think of as the Disney villain death, the classic through the 80s and 90s,
fall to the death.
Where they had to fall to their death. It couldn't be that the hero actually kills them.
Right.
It has to be their own hubris.
Right.
It has to be them thinking, I'm the best, I'm the winner, I can kill you, and then they end up dying themselves.
Yep.
And then we can go all the way to the darkest one, which is Clayton from Tarzan. Yeah. That's
dark.
That's not just fall to your death. He got strangled by the vines. It's like crazy.
Yeah. That's one of the hardcore ones for sure. Because you see the shadow.
The shadow of him hanging dead.
My
Yeah.
Oh my god. But
the story's not over.
The story's not over.
Because I always think it's a little funny in a dark way. They build a glass and gold coffin.
Right.
For Snow White.
Yeah.
And it's like, because she's dead, but she's not.
Yeah.
Like, it's the sleeping death.
Yeah. This is going back to the whole, even before they build the coffin, there's, of course, the grieving scene, the weeping scene. And the thing that's so kind of powerful about this is the way it transitions from the death to the reveal of Snow White in bed and the dwarves just openly weeping. And I heard, apparently going by the documentary, they said, back when the film screened in 1937 at the premiere, when that sequence happened, not a dry eye in sight in the audience. Clark Gable was apparently crying, and like, what was and to me, my big deal about like character work for like subtle to not subtle character work is that Grumpy is weeping openly, and that to me is already a mini arc that Grumpy has done in this story. He's one of the first ones to go, we don't need her here. What the hell is she doing? Get her out of here. To him going full charge, we're going to save her. To him grieving her death and possibly even being guilty because he didn't make it in time. Powerful. Just absolutely powerful. Beautifully animated. Even it looks like the candle wax is crying. That's how good this is. This was all well thought out, Then they go, and what's also kind of interesting about like post building the gold glass coffin is that it also implies time has passed because there's like a tree with snow and sun, so she's been there for a while. Pin.
Yeah.
Which means that if you want to fill in the blanks, the dwarves and the animals probably visited her, maybe every day or every, whatever. Some might even watch guard to see, making sure she's good. Like that's what's implied. Time has gone on. They are sad for a very long time until the prince shows up. I kind of came up with a joke though. The prince comes in and he starts singing, like he's doing his Prince song, and I kind of made the joke while watching it, like grumping on, "Would you mind? We're grieving here." But no, he comes in because he heard about no, I can't say Sleeping Beauty, that's someone else. But he heard about this and gives his kiss to Snow White, and then boom, she wakes up and we're all good.
Yeah.
How about that?
That's it.
That's it.
Everything's great.
Simple as that. They
Movie's over.
Go to the castle. We move the hell on.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. So
it's a good movie.
It's a good movie. It's not one of my favorites. It's not my favorite Disney, but whenever I do go back and rewatch it, I'm like, there's a reason why they made a bunch more. There's a reason why
there's a reason why Snow White is like one of the ones that other companies have really leaned on.
Oh yeah.
Where, like you said, Snow White and the Huntsman, Mirror.
Yeah.
There's a bunch. Like it's.
No, I recall. Yeah. Like I can list them all day long, but at the end of the day, like even if it's a Disney affiliated or not Disney affiliated, the fact that this movie made the impact that it did means that like if somebody wants to do a Snow White thing, they can, and the reason they can is because Disney made this story so well known to the public memory that you can easily do your take on Snow White. You want to have Snow White team up with 7 samurai warriors? Go for it.
That does exist.
That does exist. That's why I referenced it.
But yeah, I think even just from like an animation standpoint, this thing's gorgeous. Mm-hmm. Character design, they're them, they're iconic. Like I don't think it's an exaggeration to say like they really came out swinging. They made this movie and it was like, oh shit, you really had something to prove and you proved it.
That to me is a great sign of nothing more powerful to an artist than telling them they can't do it. Mm. And if it's, sure, you can give all the credit to Walt, and look, it's very clear Walt was spearheading this, but you can imagine all the other animators going like, no, we could do this.
And then I think it's also important to point out, I mean, we say the Disney princess it was the language of everything what Disney was known for. His next ones after this, it was not in this order, right? It was Fantasia, Dumbo, Pinocchio.
Yeah.
Like he did not do another princess.
No.
And then Sleeping Beauty. Like it took 12, 13 years to go from this to Sleeping Beauty because it was just like they had other things to tell. Like it wasn't just like, oh, only princess. No, it was like you said, they go back to their silly symphony. We're going to make a serious movie with fun, light moments.
Yeah.
That's easy.
It. And no, and you gotta I'm glad you brought that up because you do have to commend them for realizing, for even thinking any modern lazy studio would go like, okay, that did well, do a dozen movies just like that genre. Mm-hmm. They went, we just proved to you we can make an animated film. So we're gonna make others, like you said, there are other stories we want to tell. And the fact that like Fantasia, Dumbo, and Pinocchio are so different to each other proves why the legacy they do have exists. I always feel like the first, most folks will tell you, like for filmmakers, it's like your first one is important, your second one's more important. You can make a great first film, but if your second film doesn't prove something else about your talents, you're going to have to struggle making the third one or the fourth one or even whatever, right? I don't remember the order either at the moment, but
I think I'm pretty close. But
I'm probably pretty close. But the fact is, like Dumbo and even Dumbo and Pinocchio are so different from each other to this film, and they're great in their own, great in their own different way. Says something about the at least the intelligence of them going, what story do we tell next? And the answer is, we are passionate about this one, then we're passionate about this one, and we're passionate about this one. It's what kind of used to fuel Pixar in the early days.
Yes.
The period that we loved about Pixar. And, you know, like, I'm not going to poo-poo too much of what they're doing now. And, you know, I'm not saying they're awful, but they've been doing it so long now they're kind of at a routine of new movie, sequels to other movies. New movie, sequels to other movies, which is what Disney does, Disney animation does as well.
Yeah. And even, I mean, to say that, the Disney fairy tale formula, like Dumbo wasn't a fairy tale.
No.
Pinocchio was a kind of a fairy tale, but it wasn't grim. It was a completely different origin.
Yeah.
Like they were taking from all different places. But yeah, now there feels like a sameness. Even, I mean, like you're saying with Pixar, I'm thinking of even comparing it to like DreamWorks.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
When DreamWorks started, it was like, okay, so we need a kind of a curmudgeon, or we need like an outsider, and he's going to do the thing with his eyebrow. Like, and all of their characters did the kind of one raised eyebrow, squinty
smirk.
thing. Yeah, the smirk. And I mean, even looking at Shrek is like looking at fairy tales and saying "fuck you." Like, it's truly like one of those things where it's like, okay, that was a good idea.
Yeah.
But it was, some of the other ones, it was like, okay, ants, okay, whatever. But yeah, I it's a good movie.
It's a good movie. At the end of the day.
And I don't think it's unremakeable.
Yeah.
I think because it's so old and because so many others have done their versions, I think it could be remade.
And there are things, as I'm watching this, where I go, you know what? If you wanted to, expand this thing, expand that thing, maybe explore this, maybe explore that. So when they did do this, what did they do? Well, we're going to go back in the mine and we'll dig some more. And when we come out, we'll see how well they...
To all who come to this happy podcast, welcome.
And musings are your musings.
Here age relives fond memories of the past.
And here youth may savor the challenge and promise of the future.
Hi, I'm David.
And I'm Kayla.
And if it wasn't readily apparent from that, we're huge nerds about Disney. That's why we're doing the Animusings podcast.
Once a month, we'll sit down and talk about a film in detail from the Walt Disney Animation Studios filmography, covering them in chronological order, from Snow White to Moana and beyond.
To Moana and beyond!
Sweetie, we're not doing Pixar yet. We'll do that after.
And that's going to be a long time coming. Anyway, if that sounds up your alley, come join Kayla and I, and maybe a guest or two, as we explore the Disney animated canon, film by film.
With the hope that it'll be a source of joy and inspiration to all the world.
Ooh, nicely said.
Don't thank me, thank Walt.
All right, we'll take a little break from mining for a second. Check out this little nugget that I mined. It's a Patreon.
That's beautiful.
Extra shiny.
Yeah. Oh man, let me take a closer look at it. You're like picking the litter of voice actors.
Yeah, and then Maurice LaMarche is Grumpy, and they're right to give Grumpy a lot to do.
Yep.
They recognize Grumpy's the one. Grumpy pops.
Grumpy.
And then you have Maurice LaMarche.
He is probably my favorite in this in the episodes we've watched. Yeah.
And then making Bill Farmer Doc, like you said, he's goofy.
He's goofy.
Yeah, of course, yes. You give the Disney royalty the highest honor, Doc.
100%.
The leader of the 70. Now, okay, here's the thing. As you kind of described, the Queen calls on the 70 whenever she has a problem.
Woo! What a beautiful little gem you got there.
And you can go to patreon.com/nothingnew to find more of those gems.
And it won't cost that much. Unlike this gem, it will only cost you $1 a month to listen to our entire library since 2017, right? Many, many, many episodes that we have no plans on really releasing on our main timeline. It is only available right here in our Patreon. But for $25 for 1 month, you can control the show and tell us what to dig. And tell us what episode. Basically, you tell us what remake and original film you want us to cover, and we will cover it for you for that 1 month. Many great episodes came from this. Our King Kong episode, our Power Ranger episode, our Ninja Turtles episode. All of those are there, and they exist because somebody said, hey, here's $25 for that 1 month. And you can be that person.
Yep.
That could be you.
That could be you.
All right. Now, Snow White.
2025.
We've brought up very briefly, there have been other attempts, other adaptations, remakes, re-adaptations, to be honest. So they're not remaking this, they can't. But they are touching upon the memory of, like you said, this movie that clearly created the memory of Snow White. And there's so many iterations, so many dozen billions of takes of Snow White in film and television even. So it is interesting that it took Disney a while to get there, to finally say, oh, we can do one too, especially at their rate of live animated to live action movies they've been doing. We've gone through several of them. We haven't even gone through all of them.
We've reached kind of a breaking point, Justin.
Yes,
Did you not think so? It's I mean, they made a film called Mufasa, which is a prequel to the live action Lion King.
But also a sequel to the live action Lion King.
Yeah, they somehow, and it's only to that one. Like it's now a separate universe.
Yeah.
They've done it.
Yeah. And there are a couple we haven't covered because they were past when we released this show.
Yes.
So okay, Patreon people.
Yeah.
If you want us to do those, you can throw.
I'd love to do Cinderella.
I would too.
Yeah. I think that one's really fascinating.
Yeah. They've gone through so many of them, and now they're making the ones that aren't even of the Renaissance period or the classic period. They're already doing the ones 20 years ago from the 2000s.
They say Moana live action is coming like next year.
Yeah, like it's filmed. I've seen leaked photos of what The Rock is going to look like as Maui, and I don't know how to feel at the moment.
Yeah.
But yet it took a while for them to do this one. The first live action, the first animated film, obvious of history and their film, and we talked about the importance of the legacy. It took a while for them to get around to it.
Yeah.
And well, okay.
Allow me to bring up something that they did. Disney made an animated film, which was kind of coinciding with like their 100th anniversary, all that stuff.
Yes.
Called Wish.
Yeah.
Which was kind of, if you weren't ready for it, I can see why people didn't like it. But it was kind of like a weird origin to the Disney fairy tale.
Yeah.
It kind of it told where the wishing star came from. It's like that is an element in different stories.
Yeah.
It had this is kind of a spoiler, but it kind of had an origin for the magic mirror. It kind of had these weird things built into it. And it almost feels like that's what they wanted to I don't think they actually wanted to ever remake Snow White. They'd rather just do that because the main character in Wish has 7 friends who are essentially the 7 dwarfs. And I thought that was a beautiful way to do that. You're paying tribute to all of the movies that came before. And doing a new movie that fits. We're going to make it modern. That's fine because no one can compare it to something old because it's its own thing. This is, I think, where the mistakes of Snow White began. Making it modern.
And then...
Well, it's not even set in modern day.
Yeah.
It just has a lot of a modern sensibility about it in a weird way.
And, it took a while.
Yeah.
It took a long, long time and different weird takes. I'm looking on the Wikipedia, and apparently as early as 2016, which makes sense. They were
Beauty and the Beast. They were
trying, and here's a weird one. Disney has considered live action Snow White since the early 2000s, and at one point planned on adapting the story as a martial arts film set in China.
Why not?
Sure.
Yeah. Maybe Disney shouldn't do that though, huh?
No, maybe yeah.
Maybe a Chinese filmmaker in China.
maybe you should learn your lesson from the last time you tried doing a story set predominantly in China as a remake. Go listen to our Mulan episode if you haven't listened to it yet, by the way. But apparently, Mark Webb was attached in 2019 to direct. Apparently, even Greta Gerwig was rumored to have was rumored to try to be a co-writer for the screenplay in 2021. She didn't clearly do it. There were plenty of other people who were probably looking for the job and doing it, but then at the end of the day, they did not, and they went ahead with the film that we got. And if you can see how we're dancing around this, I want to point something out. And Andrew, look, I don't know how you feel. You can be definitely the opposite of me in this. I'm gonna just rip the Band-Aid off and go, I don't think it's a good movie, but I don't think it's as bad as some of the people online want it to be.
I definitely agree. Because we're going to address the onlineness of it, the reaction of quote unquote the internet, which isn't a singular unit, but sure. There are people online who want to say that Rachel Zegler is the reason why this movie failed. Mm-hmm. She's the worst part of the movie, etc.
She's awful. She sucks. Why do they like her?
And she's not.
No.
I mean, we covered West Side Story. She was great in that. She's pretty good in this.
I'm going to argue she's the one thing I liked.
I mean, she's certainly carrying the film with songs.
Yes.
Anytime another person sings in this film, you're like, why isn't she singing? It's truly like, why? Like, what are we doing here? That's the reason why she's here, because we can have her sing. Mm-hmm. This movie, kind of more than any recent Disney remake, is a musical.
Yes,
a full-on musical.
Right.
It's almost like we talked about this with producers, kind of, but the idea of they made this for Broadway.
Right.
They made this so they could put this on Broadway. Like, it's almost like the backwards situation where it's not like, oh, there was a Broadway production of Snow White that actually was really good and they used all the songs. No. They made this movie. They filled it with Broadway-style storytelling and songs. Mm-hmm. It's so they could put it on the stage in 10 years or 5 years or whatever. That's the only way I can look at it, because it had so many of the things of a Broadway show where the song isn't done and we have a part of a scene and then we come back to the song. That happens so much in this movie that I was like shocked. I was like, oh, I didn't realize it was a musical. Right.
The new music, by the way, are done by Benji Pasek and Justin Paul. They're most famous for, I believe, coming up with the music for Dear Evan Hansen. And I liked a decent amount of their music. I'm not like necessarily going like, actually you probably know them because I know you're a fan of this. They're the ones who wrote the music for La La Land.
Oh, okay. Yes, it does have that La La Land feel.
They did The Greatest Showman. Also fits.
Yeah.
And they did Aladdin.
Okay.
Which I want to point out.
The like two new songs in Aladdin, or I guess they're rearranging even.
The rearranging, but the two new songs that came up with, I think the Jasmine's song.
Yeah.
I stand by really liking Jasmine's song.
It's a good song.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good addition to the story and everything. Yeah.
100%. So seeing their name attached to this kind of makes sense. But look, and I've liked a decent amount of their stuff, and maybe I don't love every movie that's attached to their music, but I like a lot of their music. But this film is hurt by how do I put this?
I mean,
overthinking.
Oh, sure.
Mm-hmm. That's one element. That's one big problem. Yeah.
It's definitely one of these things where they want to give. Well, okay. Let's just start at the top. The idea that this film is just called Snow White.
Yeah.
They've removed the 7 dwarfs from the title.
Let me take that pen off. I did literally add it in the beginning of this episode.
Because they want it to be about Snow White.
Yeah.
And the dwarfs feel outdated, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. They got, Peter Dinklage had a very famous soundbite about why is Disney bringing back the 7 dwarfs. Mm-hmm. It's an outdated idea. And I don't know what happened in the writing process of this movie. We weren't there, and I don't think they're talking about it because they just want this to be done. But something happened. I don't know if they had the idea of not having dwarfs in it at all, and then had to put them in.
Yeah.
Or if they put them in and had to take them out and had to put them back in. I don't know what happened here, but you can sense that something happened.
Because one of my big pins is they weirdly are not in it enough.
Yeah.
And it's so strange.
The movie ended and I thought to myself, you could take them out and nothing would change.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, the
bizarre.
The moment, they put some stuff, they have a decent. It's not like they're not in it. It's not like they're a cameo, but there is a sequence where they, after the sequence of her being there, Snow White leaves because she feels, oh, I'm putting you guys in danger. And then I figured, she leaves, and I figured, but clearly at least Dopey's gonna follow her, right?
Right. Yeah.
No, they're out. They're out of the movie for 5 minutes.
And then she meets another group of 7 misfits living in the forest.
One of them being played by...
And then there's 7, and then there's a main one who's the prince villain.
Who's not a prince.
Who's not a prince.
He's a bandit.
And so at that point I was like, oh, these were the original replacements for the 7 dwarves.
At least script-wise, right?
Yeah, very clearly we were going to get little personalities for each of these people. But now we don't. They're just Robin Hood and the Merry Men.
You know what it is? It's you can tell sometimes when Disney feels like we have to protect certain things, and you can tell certain times where they go, do what you want, I think when they did Jungle Book, it was the earliest of them going, oh, do whatever you want, and they went ahead and made Jungle Book as is, right? But then and then more importantly, go back to another older episode, when they did Pete's Dragon. Yeah. They did, Lowry, do whatever. Yeah. As long as you have a dragon, his name's Pete, and and you have a kid named Pete and Elliot the dragon, we're fine. Which he did, and of course he made a gorgeous, beautiful film. But when he came back to do Peter Pan and Wendy, things have shifted, and all of a sudden you can tell they're like, do what you want to a point, but don't go too far, but try to keep familiar, but definitely you expand on things, but don't go too far. Yeah. And you can feel that fight in that absolutely dull movie. And so here I'm sensing that again. Is like, well, don't do this, but you can go ahead and do that. Wait, where are you going with that? Yeah. I think you're not wrong, assuming that the other 7 bandits were the fill-in concept, or a potential early concept to not do the dwarves. It's funny, you brought up a very good point about Dinklage, but I also want to bring up another point of view from a different little person. His name was wrestling name Hornswoggle, as I found out. Sure. And he brought up the fact that he understands, I understand that you want to be respectful, and I'm here for that. But keep this in mind, too. You know what you do when you don't include, you make them all animated characters, again, or CGI creations? You also didn't give 7 actors a try who don't get a lot of casting, who don't get cast a lot. You didn't give any of us a chance to be someone in this movie. And there is something to the idea that, let's say they did cast 7, little people, and they were very good. Imagine that. These are 7 actors who were given a chance to go all in on being leads in a film that they never got to be a lead before. And yes, they are playing that type, but imagine what they could have accomplished.
I don't want to feel like I'm speaking out of turn, but there does feel to be, because of what you're saying, right? He said there's an irony to the fact that Peter Dinklage might have been the cause of that. Yeah, because he wasn't a household name until Game of Thrones. Yeah, and casting him in Game of Thrones, I don't know how exactly he represents the character because I never read the books, but they must have had to have considered 1,000 other actors. You know what I mean? It had to be one of these situations where he was so good.
Yeah.
And they cast him. And now it's his words are maybe stopping others.
And here's the thing, and then again, I am a Peter Dinklage fan. I like Peter Dinklage, but I will say that like that's kind of his stance as a understandably that has been his stance as a performer and as just a human being. Like actually, one of the earliest very famous roles he had was in a film called Lost in Oblivion, and he played a character who, as an actor, who they were trying to film a psychedelic Lynchian-like scene in this fake movie, and he was cast in it. His character, but his character decided, I'm not doing this role anymore. I was like, why? You're only casting me because you wanted a little person to be surreal in your movie, not me as an actor, and I'm not doing it. It's essentially his character. So even though. And that's a very famous part for him in his early period, you know. So the idea that here he is, and maybe that's he agreed to do that because like, well, that's speaking some truth to me as an actor, you know. And again, he's gone on and do such great work in so many other films. Obviously, like Station Agent is my first exposure to him, and etc. And probably the only other time he really embraced that, embraced it to some degree or agreed to do it was like Elf, his one scene in Elf.
Right. Yes.
But even then, that's a commentary on it. That's a critique on it as well. But because of that, you're right. I think this is where the overthinking comes into play. Is that, well, then how do we do this?
So they are CGI and they look horrifying.
They look horrifying.
There's no other way to say it. Dopey looks like Alfred E. Newman, and that should be a nice thing because I like Alfred E. Newman, and it's bad. It's bad.
It's weird because it's like they want him to be younger looking, but then also it doesn't really work. Like the original Dopey design, he's bald. He's got a bald head. Here they give him some hair to, I'm assuming, to make him a little younger looking, but it's weird.
Yeah.
The dwarves are definitely not well done.
As soon as the trailer came out and they showed the dwarves, all that I could think was, oh, they should have just made them creatures. Like they should have, like they shouldn't look like humans.
Yeah.
Just completely throw that out the window, just so that you can't say, well, why didn't you just hire an actor?
Yeah.
Because why didn't you just hire an actor? Like that's the only. I keep coming back to that where I'm like, there's no reason. Rachel Zegler posted behind the scenes photos of her doing choreography with people for the scenes. Why did you just hire an actor? Like, right. It's very clear that it's like actors could have been involved at any point.
Right.
And then even more to the point, all the dwarfs are voice acted by just
famous people.
Famous people. Some of them are more famous comedians, but I couldn't even tell you who voiced who because they're in the story for so short of a time, and they don't get any personality moments.
This is the funny part, right? I praised the like kind of making them broad characters in the original film to get enough personality to come through. But because they have given less screen time in this one, they do not have the chance to be more, to be more interesting than what they are. To kind of add a pin, to unpin another thing I brought up, like there are things you could have expanded that I think could have added to the story, and one of the things is finding ways for Snow White to connect with them individually or more. And I think this scene with Dopey, teaching him how to whistle, was the right direction.
Yes,
I actually like that scene a lot. And I'm like, do that 6 more times. Or if you have to pair them, because I know it's not a 3-hour movie, do that. But you have to do that with the rest of them.
Yeah.
You have to have her connect with you. If you want to pair 2 off or 3, whatever, then you keep Grumpy at the end for her to connect to, obviously. Yeah. But that scene with Dopey, I'm like, yeah, do that. That's not bad. And then we just they leave the movie.
There's so many, for as much as they are explaining some backstory elements, there are things that they fully don't explain that make no sense to me.
Yeah.
Where it's like, why didn't you explain that? Let's stick to the dwarves for now.
Sure.
They're mining for gems. when we meet the evil queen in this film, she's obsessed with gems.
Yeah, she is.
Are they mining the gems for her?
That's what I thought.
Is she stealing the gems? No, the
No.
film makes no effort to connect the two ideas, which is why it just further. I mean, my theory is that at a certain point, they were not going to have the dwarfs at all in this film. No mining, no dwarfs. They were going to substitute them fully with these 7 bandits, and then their leader, she would fall in love with.
Right.
That is its own. That sounds like Snow White and the Huntsman to me. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you're doing your own thing. Great, whatever. Not even to have any of that. She would hang out with them. They would have the fill-in moments. There'd be one who would be like Dopey, one who'd be like Grumpy. Sure. They don't have to be called that. They can be called, Priscilla and whoever. Don't care. But then they decided to bring back in the dwarves, and they forgot to connect it to any of the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
The only connection is that then they have the party scene is now with the bandits and the dwarves. Which I'm like, well, of course you mix them together because you probably just wrote the scene already, and you're just like, yeah, they were there too.
You know what's funny about your theory is that this is what happened to, ironically, Time Bandits, the TV show.
Oh.
Because if you're, the original Terry Gilliam film, the leads were all like little people.
Yes.
But the show, no one. They're all new characters, and none of them, they're all portrayed by non-little people actors. So it's like the reverse. And they committed to that one. They, and sadly, no one talks about that show because it's on Apple Plus. No one watches things outside of Ted Lasso and Severance. So, but besides that, I think there's some legs to your theory, and I feel like that's part of that disconnect in the narrative. Why it feels like it's not flowing. It feels like it's stop and go.
And let's go back to the beginning. The way this movie starts is we get to see this is a new Disney classic. Let's show them as a kid.
Right.
So Snow White as a young girl with both her parents. Everything's great in the kingdom.
And we have to explain her name.
Yes.
In a different way because we have decided to cast somebody of color to play Snow White.
Yeah. Because
originally her name was that because her skin was as white as snow. Now you have to come up with another. And again, I have no problem with that. I want to be so clear. That doesn't bother me. I don't care.
And it's also Disney really just was like, we're going to activate the racists. They're like, we're going to cast a non-white person as Snow White, and everyone who was mad about a black mermaid,
get ready.
They got so mad.
It's stupid.
So mad.
And I want to get back to that.
Yeah.
I do want to get back to that. But let's go into the back.
Yeah, I mean, we see the parents. I was like, oh, we're meeting the mom and dad. Okay, sure.
We don't do that usually.
Yeah. Okay,
but why
great.
not? Yeah.
This kingdom's obsessed with apples. Okay, I guess we're explaining that one right now.
That was one of those where, again, you said they gave a backstory to the apples. I'm like, I don't need a backstory for the apple. What?
Yeah. Kingdom loves apples. I don't know.
They have a celebration where they made a shitload of apple pies.
Yeah.
I don't need that.
And then it's just, okay, yeah, the mom dies. Okay. And then they introduce the evil queen, the stepmother. Played by Gal Gadot.
Okay.
And at first she looks normal, and then she does the evil queen thing.
Yeah.
And then the king dies off screen. And it's...
in battle, perhaps. We don't know.
Yeah, they make it...
like he's off somewhere. He says goodbye to Snow White.
Yeah.
And it's implied he might have died in battle.
It was like they're fighting, or there's something with the Southern Kingdom. I don't know. They tried to throw in some politics.
In which I'm like, we don't got room for that.
We don't have room for kingdom politics because we already got the real life politics happening in this movie. We got to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, let's go. No.
And I think it's only because within the film itself, there is this weird mirroring of real life things going on. I don't know how I'm sitting in the theater and I'm like sweating. I'm like, how are we going to talk about like the movie is doing this to us.
Yeah.
where we can't just be like, oh yeah, it's a remake and it's fun. Like, we have to get into this now.
Yeah.
So part of another thing that happened online, the internet, as people say, that it wasn't the whole internet, it was the racist or whatever. Anyway, the idea that Rachel Zegler is the reason why this movie is bombing and why it's bad and it sucks and everything's bad, which is false.
Right.
It's because she supports Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
She made a point when I can't remember if it was when she shared the initial trailer or teaser on her Instagram. She also said, oh, and also Free Palestine. And that upset a lot of people. Yeah. But it upset, the people who support Israel.
Yeah.
Gal Gadot is from Israel.
Mm-hmm.
She supports Israel.
She was part of the
army. The idea. Like, that's the whole thing. Obviously, there has been a long-running conflict in that area. But I think it's reached a point now where more people are aware of it and have a better idea of what's going on there. And it's very clear that it is a genocide on the Palestinian people. And it's also very clear that in the press leading up to this movie, you did not see Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot together.
No.
And Rachel Zegler, people had pointed this out on her Instagram. All the behind-the-scenes photos she's posting, Gal Gadot is in none of them.
Yeah.
So whatever actually is going on between the two of them as people, I don't know. But it is very clear that she's making a point to not support a person in this film who is in favor of the genocide that is happening there in Palestine. It's like that whole thing. This movie makes it even more awkward because Gal Gadot plays the evil queen who comes into a land that is not her own and takes over and puts people in jail and kills people so that she can own land that is not hers. That's too close to real shit happening.
Look, like, clearly
it's really crazy, Justin.
It's been really wild the last, look, if you're here, if you're listening, and if you don't, and if you're not on, if we're not clear on our political side, then I don't know how you're still listening to us. But like, I will say this is that, like, it's weird to watch this and something like Wicked, and the metaphors become louder because I'm living it, and we haven't even touched on Gal's actual talent as a performer, which I will, but to know that, like, is happening, and Rachel Zegler has every right to feel how she feels, especially as someone who's young. People kind of forget that Zegler was like in her early 20s. She was like 19 or 18 when she was in West Side Story, literally a teenager. And to kind of be thrust out there and to be pointed at the air quote blame of the problem of this movie is ridiculous to me. Because in my eyes, she's one of the few good things I like about the movie. I think she's got, like, her singing's impeccable. The way she plays this, even like talking, they made the animal talking almost like an Aquamanian level of superpower, but fine, I'm cool with it. And yet here you have Gal, who I'm gonna rip this out of Bandit. Gal can't sing.
No.
And Gal generally is not good in this movie.
It's now, I will say, at a certain point in my life, I did like Gal Gadot as an actress, but that was when she was in Fast and Furious. So you don't really need that much going on there. Yeah. Sorry, Vin. Vin, look, to his credit, Vin Diesel brings more emotion to Groot than anyone needs to.
Right.
And then he's also in the Fast and Furious movies where he mostly, I mean, it's a meme, but he says family. You know what I mean? That's those movies.
Yeah.
So Gal Gadot was fine in that.
Right.
Great. Whatever. In this, there's something that she's doing that is, it's campy.
Yeah.
It's, this idea of like an over-the-top flamboyant performance.
Yeah.
And it doesn't match the tone
there it is.
of anything else that's going on.
Yeah.
when you see the way that she does all of the things that she does in this movie, I did have a thought.
Mm-hmm.
Where I was like, if the rest of this movie was campy, I think this could be fun.
Mm-hmm.
If you just made a fully camp, like we're committing to how earnestly stupid some of it is. Like that's the campiness where it's like, it is on its face idiotic, and yet we are playing it so serious.
Yeah.
That can be fun.
Yeah.
I had a whole bunch of ideas for that. I was like, yeah, that could be a great thing. But only Gal Gadot is doing it, and it's bad. It's very bad. And then even when they got to her song, I was like, oh, I'm not having fun. You should be having fun with a villain song.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'd say most of my favorite songs through Disney films are the villain songs.
Sure. Okay.
The villain song, because they are campy and it fits those movies.
Mm-hmm.
This was like, I was like, oh, this is too real life. Like, it's like too real.
Yeah.
Too real.
Yeah.
It was too real.
It's
where
too
it's
real.
like,
Yeah.
she wakes up and she's like, I'm the best because I'm in charge. And I was like, oh. I was like, I think I know someone who thinks that every day. Oh no. Oh God. It was too real.
It's too real.
And it was not like fun. Like they tried to make it fun and silly, but I was like, I'm not into this at all. And yeah, she can't sing. That's the other. And then she can't sing on top of all that.
I that's where I'm going to start pointing the blame on Mark Webb as well. And look, I'm sure also it's not entirely on him. I'm sure there was much like I talked about with how maybe what happened with Lowry during Peter Pan and Wendy. I'm sure he also struggled with dealing with whatever the ups and downs that the studio wanted. Yeah. But that being said, I always feel like when I heard Mark Webb was the one directing Snow White, I was always kind of like, really? I guess. Sure. Like, yeah, why not? I suppose. Like, I do I like the musical number that was in 500 Days of Summer? Sure. That's cute.
Mm-hmm.
But like to give him a whole ass musical? I guess. I'll be very vocal on the fact that like not particularly a big fan of his Amazing Spider-Man movies. And I do feel like that's another case of studio telling him what to do. So I almost feel like the only Mark Webb movie I've ever seen is 500 Days of Summer. A movie that I loved and has grown to not like as much as I gotten older.
Yeah.
Because I don't relate to, Joe Gorlow's character anymore. But regardless of that, I'd always felt like I wasn't like, I always kind of felt like there was just an odd pairing. And you can make that argument a lot of the director choices they've been making for the live action films. But his one was like, Mark Webb, I guess. And like you can see the struggle he has in this film. It's very as much as I was praising the tone and consistency of the original film, there is no ups and downs on what we're doing here. As you brought up, Gal's performance is too campy. That doesn't jive with what Rachel Zegler's been doing. The dwarves are too realistic, but then also they have to be comedic.
They're just full-on cartoon characters.
Yeah. But they look realistic in a bad way.
Yes.
That's a design choice that he had to agree with. And I'm sure, again, studio probably wanted that a certain way. And then you get the bandits, which I don't care about.
Let's get into Mr. Not the Prince.
Mr. Not the Prince? Mr. Not Charming?
What the hell was his name even in this movie? I couldn't tell you. It was really weird. Jonathan. Andrew Burnap. He's not a prince. We keep saying that because the prince was the original.
Yeah. He was the original prince.
This guy is, essentially a leader of the rebels. Again, the real life implications of this movie with the actors that they have in it. I was like, please, we didn't have to do this, but they do it. So he's the leader of the rebels, which at times they make it sound like the plot is all over the place.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Not simple at all.
Yeah.
Weird, complex, way out there. I want to drive this through line. So we first meet him where he is captured because he was stealing food or something.
At the castle.
And because the queen is hoarding food. Go figure, she won't let her people eat. Anyway, so then Snow White frees him, and they have their little moment there.
Yeah.
Then when the huntsman takes her out into the woods, and then she goes and the whole thing, whatever. she runs into him again.
Yeah.
And they say, I don't remember which character said. One character is like, oh, they're the last remaining, like they support the king. But then someone else says they're a lost troupe of actors. So then I was like,
I feel like the dwarves were saying.
Yeah, I was like, who are they then?
Yeah.
Because they are just essentially bandits in the forest. This is Robin Hood and his merry men, essentially, fighting against the Sheriff of Nottingham, a.k.a. the evil queen. Like, none of it tracks right. And then the whole... he's wearing a hoodie, Justin.
I know.
He's wearing I know we're in fantasy past. He's wearing a hoodie, and it's so distracting. Because Snow White's in her classic outfit.
Yeah.
And
she
then
looks like Snow White.
He's in a hoodie.
No.
I don't know how else to explain it.
No, the thing about Jonathan, or my brain, because I love Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. I kept wanting to say Jonathan, but listen to our Dungeons and Dragons episode, by the way. Don't forget that. But I, to me, everything you just described about that character shows my issue with the character. There is no creativity in Jonathan. I don't understand. There's like no real effort to do something interesting with him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's no effort to make him unique. There's no effort to make him stand out. There's no effort to make him a new twist on something that's already in the story. Nothing. You just said, well, we can't do another prince, so make him Robin Hood. And I don't fucking care.
They gave him, as you said, this is from the people who made La La Land. They gave him the La La Land song.
Yeah.
Where him and Snow White are fighting.
Yeah, fighting.
And it's princess problems. Which I'm like, tonally, it sounds like you agree with the queen. Like, there's like this weird thing where it's this movie is both sidesing us.
Yeah, and I don't like it.
And I fucking hate it.
I want to point something out about, I almost forgot the name of that song until you said it. I hated this song.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It would make sense if she was like a Jasmine type, where she clearly was a princess.
Yeah.
And but that's not even this version of Snow White, or never was a version of Disney Snow White. So giving her like the song about your privilege, I went, what privilege? She was a fucking maid.
And the weird thing is, her parts of the song, she's talking about fairness.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, things aren't fair. Whoa, that's your princess problem. And I'm like, what? Huh? What are you talking about?
I hate it. I don't know. And again, this is coming from, where's the script?
Yeah.
Like, is this a song that they came up with for an initial version of the story?
Mm-hmm.
But then when they started rewriting, it's like, well, we can't rewrite that song. So they have to try to see if they can make it work within the current version. It doesn't fucking make sense.
And then an interesting idea that is thrown out and then thrown away instantly. The king's alive?
Nope.
For like 10 minutes of this movie, they were like, Snow White was like, my dad might be alive. I gotta go find him. And then it's like instantly like, no, there's no way he's alive.
No. Again, it's why dangle that?
Yeah. Why even put that out there?
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
Especially for the queen to go, oh, he's dead. I killed him.
Yeah.
Why? What was the? We figured that. That doesn't make, again, simple. But you're not doing simple. You overthought everything.
They so overthought things they didn't think them through. Because here's the other thing about the evil queen. In this film, is she just like, she has one magic trick she can do, and then she also knows how to do potions?
Yeah.
She's not really a witch.
Yeah.
She does the same trick 3 times.
Yeah.
The flower, and then turning it to ash, and then a diamond.
Yeah.
It's her same speech. She does it three separate times.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing we see her do is the potion.
Yeah. Which then...
I'm like, so has no magic, or she's like faking? I don't even understand.
Here's going back to kind of like the weird attack on Zegler. Is that, she made a comment about like, oh, this isn't going to be your normal, typical, this is going to be your normal, I'm paraphrasing so badly.
Yeah.
But it's like, this is going to be your normal Snow White. She's going to be a little bit more like driven, yada, yada, a little bit more. And like, I get that. And that is what the character is. But if you also looked at literally the other live action adaptations, they have done that with them as well. Like Belle, they decided, let's make Belle more of an inventor in the new movie. And no one bitched about that. Here, the only thing they decided to do was like, okay, so Snow White isn't gonna be a like, oh no, Huntsman, don't kill me. That vibe. She doesn't do that. She has a defining moment with the Huntsman, as opposed to like, being a realistically scared person, because she has a drive to be a better ruler, which is, again, you can make the argument that's what they did to Jasmine. They wanted her to, like, she has a motivation now to be Sultan, essentially. Then and the issue I have with that is not so much that she does, it's just like, yeah, but it also comes off as like lazy motivation, lazy ways to update her, as opposed to finding other ways to update her. A lot of this is coming off as like a lot of like this and that choices. Anyway, because of this choice of that, everyone latched onto her going, look, you're ruining Snow White, blah 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 blah. And I'm just sitting here going like, they're only doing the most bare minimum of updating the character.
Yeah,
that's all. Like, that's literally it. And you're blaming it on her because that's her job to play it like that. That was written like that for her to do. But, this is the same groups who hated Brie Larson for some stupid reason.
Yeah.
Like, man, oh man, I would love if they put Brie Larson and Rachel Zegler in a Star Wars movie. See what kind of hellish day that's going to be.
Damn, that sounds cool.
I would want to watch that, but that sounds like a horrible day on the internet.
I think another great irony, a horrible day on the internet. Another great irony is 100% the same exact people who said Gal Gadot is obviously so much more pretty than Rachel Zegler.
Yeah.
Why would the Mirror ever say that another person is more pretty than Gal Gadot? Are the same exact, it's a 1-to-1 Venn diagram. These are the people that when she was cast as Wonder Woman said, well, doesn't look tough and she doesn't look big enough and strong enough.
She's skinny.
She's skinny and ugly.
Yeah. She's also a person of color. Because I'm assuming a lot of y'all wanted essentially another, than a white lady to play Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Because they're hypocrites. These guys, these people online who love to make these angry videos on YouTube are just hypocrites.
It's insane.
It is insane. Yeah.
I want to. Okay. Let me get my Mirror complaint out.
Yeah, let's go for it. I'm down.
The Mirror looked ugly as shit. Like some of the worst CGI. The Mirror. You could pick a magic mirror in any other Snow White adaptation, anything else, and I would say, yeah, that looks better.
Yeah,
it looks better.
Yeah.
I don't know why this one looks so bad. And they made such a weird point of saying the magic mirror only answers one question. Who is the fairest of them all? That's the only question it can answer. So what's the point of this fucking mirror?
You make this giant mirror to just do one question.
And so why is the queen obsessed with the mirror? Yeah. They never explain that. They want to explain so much else in this movie. They could have tied her magic to the mirror. They could have tied everything. Because, and I only say it like this because when you get to the end of the movie, the mirror is what defeats her. Yeah. We don't even get her falling off a cliff anymore.
I kind of hate the finale.
It makes no sense, Justin.
No.
I'll admit, I got sleepy in this movie. I got sleepy when she ate the apple.
I got grumpy in this movie.
Because I was just like so not into this movie. I was dropping out. I was like, I can't make it. I'm not making it. This movie lost me entirely. But then I woke up for that finale, and I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Literally, what the fuck is this?
Going back to the original film, there was drama, there was tension, and there was a moment of sadness. It gave this the whole spectrum of emotion that audiences can connect to. Even like me, who was watching this movie for the whatever amount of time, I was still like looking at it going, wow, look what this movie did in 1937, first animated film. Look what this accomplished. And then I'm looking at this movie, and I'm seeing like, oh, cool. Like, what are we doing with the ending? Okay, so the dwarves are now underneath the castle. Are they going to do something cool? Nope. Oh, like, are they going to, like, break the castle from within? Or are they going to do something nipped? Are we going to see a fun sequence where the bandits take out some of the guards together? That's kind of... No, nothing? Nothing. Literally nothing. They do nothing. Whereas in the original film, Grumpy is leading a charge to protect Snow White and to fight the queen.
Yeah.
And then we get the confrontation with the queen and Snow White here. where it's like Snow White with her people because yay, where I'm leading the charge. I'm being a hero.
That
being a
just made
leader.
no sense. She like points at some guy and she's like, "I know you. Your name's Joe, and you're a baker."
Here's the thing.
And it's like, wait, huh?
That sequence is one of those where it's like, oh, that's like a draft 2 idea that no one figured out how to make it really make sense.
And they didn't seed it early.
Because no, if you seeded something like the Queen doesn't know who these people are.
Yeah.
And then, but you
or
show,
the people forgot about Snow White, like something.
Right.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing: if the idea is Snow White knows everybody because she is a leader who cares about her people.
Yeah.
So if you do a scene where, yeah, as a little girl, she said hi to everybody. As a little princess with her family, she said hi to everybody by first name.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, John. Hi, George. Blah 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 blah. And then you go show that with a scene with the Queen where someone is like, "Well, my family needs it." What's your? I forgot your name already. Something like that to showcase that she doesn't give a shit, right?
Mm.
And then you do this scene, this supposedly this defining scene where Snow White goes, "I know who you are. You're a baker. You're a father. Blah 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 blah." I see the idea, but like you said, there's no seeding it. There's no expectation of it. There's no a build up to it.
Mm.
It's an idea that someone wrote. Oh, let's do something like that, and then another writer came in and forgot about it because they weren't interested in that idea.
And it's kind of a reused idea from Aladdin.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They have that moment where the
You're
guards turn on the Sultan and Jasmine says, "I know you. You've
Yeah.
been one of my
You're
guards
right.
for my whole life."
You're right.
And then that's where Jafar snaps him into the dungeon. And
Yeah.
that's why they don't side with Jasmine.
Yeah.
Because why would the guards change allegiance? Like,
Right.
there's certain things like that where it's like, well, yeah, she's the queen. Like, why would the guards suddenly not side with the queen? Why would the town? But obviously the town hates the queen anyway because she's hoarding food for no fucking reason.
Right.
Like, it's stupid.
No, it is. But
But then the mirror. The showdown at the mirror,
mm-hmm.
where then the queen breaks the mirror because she's so mad that
Yeah.
she's not the fairest. And then the mirror sucks her into the mirror dimension. As I'm saying these words, I cannot believe that I sat in a theater and watched this happen, and it didn't make a lick of sense.
Here's the thing that I love about the tragedy of the not tragedy because fuck the Queen, but what had the fate of the Queen in the original film?
Yeah,
she dies as the hag.
Yes.
That's important.
She dies as the hag after she totally failed.
Yeah,
And the people that love Snow White are coming after her.
yeah. That's important.
That is a sentence you should have been able to translate to the new one,
Yeah.
even if there were no dwarfs.
Yeah,
Even if the queen's a totally different person, you could still do that again.
yeah.
And they don't.
No. Boggles the mind.
Yeah.
Boggles the mind.
I can't make sense of it.
I had this, and this is like such a long critique of maybe not just Disney, but like modern studio thinking. But if I can go ahead and sort of like look at Disney, and I won't take too long here. When they made Snow White and every film after that during the Walt era when he was alive and trying to come up with stuff, the thing that you know, for better or for worse, and you can definitely critique how maybe Disney ran things or how he didn't agree with unions or etc.
Mm-hmm.
Those are things you can absolutely say he was in the fucking wrong in. Because I'm not here to go, Uncle Walt's perfect. No, I know. He's done bad things as a leader of his company. But as an artist, you can say, not just because it's everybody involved, that they were pushing artistically every project to try to innovate and to try to expand and to try to make memorable movies. That was their strength as a company, you know, from this movie, from Snow White to Mary Poppins, trying to create new experiences for audiences was what Disney was really good at.
Mm.
And whether they succeeded or didn't, they still tried, you know, like the company that it is now has been so doing its best to just make everyone happy without thinking about new ways to innovate because they don't want to, because that's
They feel like they don't need to.
they don't need to. They used to.
Yeah.
You know, like even that, you know, like when you, and look, I'm not asking them to try to change animation forever, but I would like for them to try a little harder, you know, because that's what they used to do. You know, like the most innovative thing that happened in animation didn't even come from them in the last 15 years. It came from Sony.
Mm-hmm.
Into the Spider-Verse.
Mm-hmm.
That allowed people to go, hey, you remember when animated movies, CGI movies can look like drawings again? They want the aesthetic of looking like it's handmade.
Mm-hmm.
So then now that started a trend of other studios. Even DreamWorks started doing that with like the Puss in Boots sequel.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that Disney, a company that has birthed from innovation and became successful because of innovation, has been not trusting to create innovative things, but to keep going to the sameness. And the fact that like this is a diatribe of where they're at now, where it's like it all culminates into what they did with this.
Yeah.
A movie based off of the film that changed the industry, changed and set their company to what they are. And this is the best they can do?
Yeah. Shocking. You know, I haven't said it enough with your point with Mark Webb as the director, who he became very well known with the Amazing Spider-Man films, in their own way, a remake of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And then now he's doing this remake of a classic Disney movie. I guess it just shows Mark Webb is really good at making nothing new.
Please rate and review Nothing New, a Remake podcast on your podcast app.
You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at NothingNewPod.
You can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/nothingnnew.
Nothing New, a Remake podcast, is part of the Benview Network.